Okay, we are right on time, so let's begin this webinar. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AZTESOL Professional Development Series. My name is Madhu Kesi, your host for today. I am a Vice President and incoming President of AZTESOL. It's great to have you all join us from different parts of the world and country and the world. The title of today's webinar is Ethical Epistemic Awareness and the Use of AI in Language and Literacy Education. So there's a lot in there. While AI's affordances have been widely celebrated but rather uncritically, Dr. Sharma, the guest speaker for today's webinar, will walk us through the ethical awareness of and an implication of its use. As you may know, this webinar aims to offer various workshops and talks as part of professional development opportunities for AZTSOL members and the public. So let me briefly introduce our guest speaker for today's webinar. Dr. Sam Sharma is Associate Professor and Graduate Program Director in the program in Writing and Rhetoric at Stony Brook University, part of the State University of New York. His scholarship and teaching focus on writing in the discipline, cross-cultural rhetoric, international students and education, new media and education, and issues about language and language policy. He has published widely in these areas in a variety of venues in and beyond writing studies, a recipient of Nepal Vidya Bhushan 2000 and Future Leaders Award 2012, SUNY Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Faculty Service 2021, and the Fulbright Specialist Fellowship. Dr. Sharma is actively engaged in faculty development support internationally, including to address emerging challenges posed by new technologies such as AI, ChatGPT, or any or some other AI tools. So let me share a little bit about the format structure of the webinar. Dr. Sharma, as a guest speaker, will present his ideas for the webinar session for about 50 to 55 minutes, shedding light on the ethical awareness of AI use in language, literacy, and writing instruction. Then we'll have time for 15 to 20 minutes Q&A session toward the end of the session. For attendees, if you want to ask questions to the speaker, you'll submit your questions on the chat, or you'll also have an option to share your question or ask your question directly by unmuting yourself towards the end. Like I said, this webinar is going to be recorded and will later be available on the AZTSOL YouTube channel. So now join me in welcoming Dr. Sharma to deliver his wonderful ideas on the ethical use of AI. So over to you, Dr. Sharma.
Thank you very much, Madhu, and Francesca, and everybody at the AZTSOL organization. You guys are doing a wonderful series of discussions, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this conversation. If colleagues could turn on your video, I would appreciate it. It gives a little bit of a sense of community connection. It's okay if you cannot do so. I will actually save about 15-20 minutes along the way so that we don't have to wait for until the end of the session to share your thoughts. Take notes, put it in the chat box, grab a cup of coffee or water, whatever it is your favorite drink is. Let us and make this a conversation, not only a lecture. I'm not a big fan of one-way delivery. But I do have about 5 slides that I'll be using and a few notes that I will use so that I stay focused and save time toward our conversation and activities. My goal is also to try to help you to come to your own sort of intellectual, ethical, political position, or refine that further through this conversation and learning from each other. I will be sharing my practice. I need to start by acknowledging the fact that I'm not an AI expert. I am a regular, rigorous explorer, observer, practitioner in the context of teaching writing, in the context of language and language politics, and in the context of global North, global South epistemology. And I think about it in that context, but I'm not a computer scientist or an AI expert. by any stretch. So I am like you when it comes to the technology, and I do consider myself a scholar, teacher, expert on issues of writing education, teaching, language, and language issues in society. So let's get started. Let me screen share. So the title of this discussion is Epistemic-Ethical Awareness and the Use of AI in Language and Literacy Education, although the implications can be broader for education at large. Here are the issues we will cover today, focusing on the epistemic and ethical landmines that AI is creating in education and some political ramifications if we have some time at the end. I will speak briefly to introduce each of these ideas as I view them, following up with discussions and activities along the way with which you can develop your own intellectual position, as I said, and maybe some pedagogical strategies or solutions. First, we'll explore the epistemic and rhetorical deficits of current AI systems. With regard to this, we will see why language and literacy educators, or any educator for that matter, should teach students the basic facts about that AI systems have extremely limited knowledge base, and that AI systems also tend to process information or think in dominant ways of the Western world, where they are designed. Neither of these are surprising, although they're not commonly discussed. Second, we will explore how the advent of AI is also undermining ethical norms with regard to language and epistemology and education at large, as well as other professions in society, or how it is normalizing dishonesty. With regard to this, we will consider ethical responsibilities that we must take as teachers, as well as teach our students how to do so as learners. Third, and I hope we can save some time for this, otherwise we'll do more justice to the discussion on the first two issues. We will discuss how it exacerbates geopolitical and economic harms and injustices. In this regard, we will discuss how we can educate our students about AI-driven geopolitical and economic impacts in the world, at least as they show up in the world of education. So obviously, AI is here to stay, and it also has tremendous potential. And so the approach we will take today will be to mitigate or counter the harms and harness the positive potentials to help us teach and to help our students to learn. In other words, how can you use AI to enhance learning, enhance teaching, but not undermine or bypass them? To practice what I preach, I will share with you when and how I used any AI tool in the development of this presentation. Also sharing some of the tools and approaches that I've used and developed, because transparency is key part of the message of today's discussion. First, epistemic and rhetorical deficits. And these are my observations. I would like other colleagues to add on to this or to complicate, add wrinkles to it along the way. The first thing you will hear about AI is that it has access to vast amounts of information or massive data sets, and that is true. But as I explore in an upcoming chapter on AI and writing, the vast database is only made up of a very small fraction of what is on the internet. AI systems have no access to most books, most academic databases, which AI companies may continue to find too costly. And I'm hearing from my librarian friends that they're not likely to build because the databases themselves are building their own integrated AIs, and it's a very fractured landscape. So they don't have access to almost any government records, any industry publications, or simply most written knowledge that the societies have produced in the past few thousand years. Second, within and outside the internet, most knowledge flows in thousands of languages, but AI systems depend only on a few of them or a very small number of them. That remains a systemic barrier against epistemic and bodies of knowledge and epistemologies or bodies of knowledge and many cultures. This may change as the number may rise to 1,000, but still what they cover in linguistic landscape, they will not cover in epistemic and cultural landscape. Third, and most importantly, beyond the internet, most knowledge is embodied in practice and professions, rituals and relationships, oral and artistic traditions, cultures and values, communities and unwritten rules behind them, far beyond the reach of written and digitized text found on the internet. So you can see what knowing means to AI versus to human beings. Even though the comparisons may not be apple to apple, still we need to understand what we mean by AI knows everything. It doesn't. AI knows very little, in spite of its design to typically sound like any AI tool knows everything. As Crowell 2023 argues, AI is characterized by a diversity crisis. And if this crisis, quote, isn't addressed promptly, flaws in the working culture of AI will perpetuate biases that ooze into the resulting technologies, which will exclude and harm entire groups of people, unquote. That is to say nothing about the lack of social and emotional intelligence in most AI tools or any AI tools. This is why I call AI tools like ChatGPT drunk uncle. Drunk in the sense that they don't know what they're talking about. Uncle in the sense that they're fairly educated and mature, but you know what I mean. They know little, as well as they know a lot, both true. And this uncle believes that he knows everything, but it doesn't, and also thinks in certain ways and doesn't think in the diverse ways that in which we know communities of scholars think. And then the patterns of thought, the modes of organization, all of these things tend to be limited, as you can observe from the list that AI defaults to when you ask a question. If students are perceptive enough, your students and we can observe that these deficiencies, both the epistemic side and the rhetorical side, can be seen in stock words and rigid rhetorical moves, canned apologies when pushed back, and warnings of admission of deficits, and in all manners of pattern finding and pattern generating in place of real world, realistic, context conscious, human-like understanding or thinking. So on the side of patterns of thought, to say a little bit more on that, or rhetorical resources, AI algorithms reproduce centuries of what Baca, 2009, a scholar of rhetoric and indigenous thinking, called Greco-Roman Anglo-American rhetoric, or the mode of rhetoric that tends to center on power, persuasion, dominance, rather than rhetorical modes of thinking like feminist rhetoric, invitational rhetoric, justice-based rhetoric, indigenous rhetoric, and the hundreds of rhetorical traditions from around the world. So for example, I asked the most popular AI tool, ChatGPT, quote, how would you organize a discussion about climate justice using the Nyaya Sutra rhetorical method? Nyaya Sutra is a South Asian rhetorical method that involves, as you will see, the not a persuasive, rhetorical patterns of thought where the rhetor is trying to convince or convert or control or dominate the other side, but rather a mode of inquiry that invites everybody to explore the truth and seek justice, but also do it in a way that is collaborative in nature. So there's no conversion, convincing, persuasion there. So I said, how would you do that? What terms and method and norms would you ask the discussants to adopt? Its responses started with a seemingly impressive amount of understanding of the South Asian rules of justice, defining it as a method of rhetorical inquiry, quote, rational inquiry, structured debate, and the pursuit of truth. I thought, wow, that's spot on. But beyond that odd focus on debate already, right out of the gate, which the Nyaya Sutra tradition does not encourage, as it went on to define relevant Nyaya terms and suggested Nyaya rhetorical strategies, it dived deep into the Aristotelian rhetoric, suggesting that all discussants, quote, state their thesis at the outset. I was like, what? At the outset, adding, quote, this clarity helps structure the debate. What again? In reality, participants in Nyaya deliberations start with a hypothesis-like proposition, which is not a thesis. Lloyd, what's his first name? Who's the scholar who wrote about the Nyaya Sutra rhetoric? Somebody can help me here in the chat.
I see Keith Lloyd.
Keith Lloyd. Yeah. I'm blanking out on things. Keith Lloyd in 2012 writes, NAI's exploratory, collaborative, truth-seeking process is not an argument, not a dialogue at all, and as ChatGPT suggested. So the details and confidence in AI tools responses like this, not to mention the ease and speed of the delivery of that confident content, can easily impress unsuspecting students, especially if the students are new to the topic and have not been educated about the epistemic rhetorical poverty of AI systems. So the learner's paradox in the use of AI, whereby the more knowledgeable students and teachers finds it, the more useful. It's most striking with AI's knowledge, AI's rhetoric, and AI's behavior regarding the world beyond the global north. If we view AI systems as an ignorant drunk uncle, on many issues at least, one who proposes to assist or replace teachers by claiming that he knows everything and can help you to think through anything, it is not hard to imagine or see the impacts of uncritically relying on it for our education and society. In particular, increasing penetration of AI tools in education around the world is going to lead to further erasure of the non-Western knowledge and non-Western rhetorical traditions and practices. This will also narrow the perspectives and rhetorical skills of students and educators alike in the Western world, because that narrowing down of the global perspective impacts right here at home in the global north. Whenever a generative AI tool does not have adequate information on a topic, say about a marginalized society or culture, it makes things up or offers plausible patterns that reflect traditional or biased views about that subject, as it finds in the data set. So of course, with any topic, it doesn't know what it doesn't know, even though it pretends to know everything by default, and unless pushed back. And because generative AI tools aren't trained to process information in divergent ways, they normalize dominant modes of discourse, dominant framings, and dominant perspectives of the global north. So just a little bit more then. When you hear about the problems and deficits of AI, like I shared for a few minutes, you might think, oh, is there no benefit? Is there no potential of AI? Of course, there is. There is tremendous amount of benefit. There's tremendous amount of potential if we learn to land in the middle and not romanticize it and not adopt it uncritically. Like most complex social issues, the AI phenomenon is not a black and white one. It's not a good and evil one. Yes, AI tools offer their potentials to writing educators and language literacy educators, because they have a massive number of language and literacy related potentials and capacities that we can and should be harnessing. This is not like MOOC, which may have been a marginal technology on the side that didn't really disrupt education. AI is not the same. We cannot sit here and ignore because it has the potentials and it is disrupting. So focusing on the particular context of language and literacy education, let us look quickly at both of these sides. First, the potentials. I did a little research on this, as well as building on what I have been exploring for the last few years. And I came across in my own bookmarks and also in my new research online that people are using AI to do a lot of really different things, okay? For example, in India, police departments are using AI to translate criminal communication in online platforms, preempting crimes or at least helping the crime victims when they come to report. Governments in different countries are integrating AI-based translators to their websites. You can go to any website and click a button and translate. No, it is not perfect, but it is much better. I just bought my ticket to Germany for a conference on AI and writing once I figured that out. Otherwise, I would not be able to do that, right? Then the benefits go far beyond translation in public service. People are able to access information from their government websites, non-profit organizations, from their banks, from their apps, from their day-to-day work and business and professions and industry. In fact, the uses and benefits of AI are so widely discussed in the news that AI systems seem to have that information in their databases. So when you ask AI systems, what are some of the benefits in terms of language and literacy, they'll give you a massive number of benefits. And when you try to cross-check as to whether those are realistic, you can confirm half of them are realistic. The other half, AI promoting itself, right? So I asked ChatGPT to list a number of benefits. And some of these are benefits AI listed, as well as things that I've been reading about. So translation, so at the end of the slide, I said this content is partly based on AI assisting me, all right? And so translation, language learning, helping to save endangered languages, more accessible media, and more accessible public service, communication in business and industry, multilingual learning, adaptive learning, personalized learning, curriculum localization. The list can go on and on and on, especially if we know how to use it effectively, ethically, and with some skills and savvy and experience. But as educators, we must also ask questions of injustice and harm when it comes to powerful new technologies or social systems that are typically driven by the interest of the rich or the dominant or the reckless in society. And I think in this case, all three are true. So I did a bit of research on the harms of language-based injustices, the harms and injustices on the language-based, literacy-based side. And in addition to reviewing my own set of articles and books that I've been reading in the last few years, I also tried to use a little bit more in latest publication, because this is recently coming out, the intersection of digital colonization, AI, and issues of the global South and North. It's very new. So in this case, I used some AI tools to help me to process and summarize that information. I tried to cross-check. I didn't do a good job, I'll admit. I introduced this idea because this is a useful tool if we can use it with caution, okay? And so some of the articles that I read include some really wonderful work by Julia Lee and her colleagues, including an article titled Linguistic Justice as a Framework for AI Use, Advancing Social Justice Through Linguistic Justice, and in the context of AI also. Because my focus is not so much on this particular issue, and because I want to also show you how we might be able to use these to leverage our reading and research and writing processes, I use Chat PDF to summarize some of these articles before I read them, and quickly cross-check them whatever I didn't read very carefully. And I use NoteGot. There's so many tools out there, NoteGot, in order to summarize some of the videos, TED videos and YouTube videos, because I didn't have the time to watch all of them. In this case, in the case of the videos, I was not able to cross-check as effectively, right? And finally, I used ChatGPT to kind of create the outline toward creating this slide, right? So I created, with a little assistance, in 2 or 3 hours what I might have taken up to 10 hours if I were actually read everything, right? So instead of the traditional skimming, I was doing assisted skimming. And I cannot tell you honestly that my assisted skimming was more effective than my traditional skimming. It is possible that I don't have the savvy to do the assisted skimming, that I have the confidence to do the assisted skimming. I'm too critical and skeptical to feel comfortable. So I cannot tell you that my saving of those 6 hours was worth it. What I can say is 90% of what I'm saying is based on my own scholarship, my own research, my own writing, and my own practice. 10% maybe, or 5% is coming from an AI-assisted attempt to go further, and I am not comfortable. All right, but here they are, partly assisted by AI. There are massive amount of privileges of dominant languages in the traditional domain of language scholarship research, and these are being exacerbated, and these are being aggravated by AI on a million-fold scale. It is also perpetuating language biases and stereotypes. It is aggravating hierarchies of language. It is perpetuating language-based stereotypes and prejudices, and it is causing things like harm through policing. Even within the United States, even without different languages, with vernacular back English, with accented English, Southern English, people are being targeted because of the way they speak, they use the language, because when AI tools are used. And these harms are so real. My university has a whole research project on policing and AI. So it violates community rights by taking their intellectual property, their cultural heritage, their stories and narratives, by exploiting and distorting cultures and epistemologies. Colonialism is not simply land grabbing. Coloniality, as opposed to colonizing, is a condition. And that condition is exacerbated, as I will try to come back to at the end of this discussion. So, activity 1. Based on the few things that I raised very quickly, especially the epistemic and the rhetorical deficits, as well as potential. Let us do a quick hands-on activity. Please go to chat.openai.com and ask ChatGPT, or if you want to use another tool, please open another tool, Gemini, Copilot, Notebook LM, anything. There are thousands. And ask it to write a 200-word professional bio of yourself. Mention your full name, your academic institution, any other information you feel comfortable giving to it, okay? Then see what it does. What kind of professional bio does it write for you, okay? You may even ask, does it find the kind of information that's already on the internet, or does it try to make things up? Give it a try. I'll give you a few minutes. If you don't want to do that, or if you want to do one more thing, I will give you maybe I'll leave the screen on What are some areas in which ChatGPT, you can ask ChatGPT, second kind of question, what are some areas in which ChatGPT or you are likely to give biased responses regarding different cultures or groups of people? In this case, check if it admits and what kinds of things it tells you it is biased about. And then we can have a little side chat. Let's spend about 10 minutes. How are you doing on time? Oh, I'm perfectly on time according to my own count. We actually have 7 minutes, colleagues. Maybe you want the screen, right?
Yeah.
I may have rushed a little bit in the attempt to save time for you. I'll slow down a bit.
There is a question, Dr. Sharma. Can attendees use any form of AI? Okay.
Yeah, any AI that tends to respond to questions like this. Some are too specialized. Something like ChatGPT would work. Let's give about 2 silent minutes. All right, I hope colleagues have had a little bit of time for this. Please share in the chat box what your experience was. Let's hear from colleagues. I don't want to keep talking. It has gotten better, I think. Early on, it was bizarre. It would try to please you by flattering you to the skies. It would call me an astrophysicist. Yeah. I also got my degrees in Germany. I don't know why it was doing that. And people called it hallucinating. I'm not sure. That sounds more like a feature than a bug to me. And they're fixing it gradually. I think they're lowering the temperature, as they call it. And yet, if they completely lower the temperature and make it completely factual, not fictional, I don't think the business model will work. So it's a balance between the business, in my layman understanding, the balance between the business and the usefulness. All right.
It'll never truly achieve zero temperature, but that's because it'll always be a measure of probability. That's all that
Exactly.
really is.
Exactly. So. Thank you, Rob. Rob is my old classmate and quite a bit of an expert on it and on these issues. So yeah, plausibility is the name of the game. The P in the chat GPT is actually that's a different P, generative what is it, Rob? Pre-trained.
Yeah. But, so the LLM doesn't have to do its own pattern recognition. It's already been done for it, and then the data set's been worked out.
Yeah, but it could as well have been a plausible. The term plausible could have been in its name.
It depends on the temperature of setting on SAM. What language do you want? What choice do you want? Which one's the most probable answer?
All right. So let us see some of the comments. I think we have another minute or two before we move on. Ethical is also taking assistance and without research. No. it is trying to give you AI tools, in my understanding, are guessing tools. They tend to guess very well in some cases what the next word might be. Ultimately, they're designed to guess. And if the guess is useful for you, use it. If the guess is off the mark, don't use it. I don't think they're trying to claim that they will give you accurate knowledge, because most of them will warn you and say, we may be inaccurate. Check the facts. I don't know if they're getting in that direction. Maybe we can discuss that later on, and we can bring in people that know on the technological side of it. But the two basic things that we know as writing teachers and language teachers is that it creates plausible patterns. It gets, and it's not designed to be factual. It's designed to try to create the most plausible, most reasonable patterns based on the data and the algorithm. But here's the food for thought before we move on. Please keep chiming in. Please keep reading and responding to each other. Here's the food for thought. How can we educate our students in ways by using AI tools that don't know it all and cannot think in diverse ways? Both are important. The second one is harder for people to really recognize, but it's something as language teachers and teaching students of different languages and cultural and social backgrounds, we need to pay attention to. But what difference would it make to our students if to students learning if AI tools actually knew everything, never told a lie or made things up, and also thought in all kinds of diverse patterns and did justice to the world of epistemologies and rhetoric? What if, in other words, to use an analogy, what if AI tools could not only mow my lawn instead of my neighbor mowing my lawn and me paying a fee, but also go to the gym for me instead of my neighbor going to the gym for me? Would it make a difference that my neighbor is such a great gym goer, or my AI tool would think for me? So the question in the context of learning is not how well an AI tool can do something. The question is, how well can it help us to learn? Right? But if it does the learning for us, that offloading of learning and the offloading of teaching responsibility and the offloading of the ethical human care can be problematic. And that's my position. My position is use them. The first few set of questions are, is it factual, reliable, relevant information? But the second one is it offloading learning, teaching, and my intellectual, ethical responsibility? Is it causing these other harms is yet another question we talk about. So let's look at the ethical landmines a little closely. I'll take a few minutes and then we'll have another discussion. That's the second dimension. If AI tools were not only drunk uncles regarding factual accuracy and patterns thought about that they use, that would be an information literacy issue, right? Okay, not accurate, check it. But the issue goes beyond that. We could teach students to cross-check the information and push back on how AI tools are thinking or arguing. Unfortunately, the advent of AI is also lowering expectations, misinforming users, and helping bad actors to scale up their harm to society at geometric scales. First, AI tools are not just making it easier for dishonest people to seek or earn credit for intellectual labor and property that is not their own. In fact, AI companies are themselves saying that if we don't grab any information, any knowledge that we can find and turn it into a business model, then we cannot make a profit. And like, if I don't steal my neighbor's cucumbers, I won't have a cucumbers is not a gardener's excuse for stealing or a neighbor's excuse for stealing. That is, in my understanding of the news that I read about OpenAI, that is the case that they're making for continuing this. Oh, it is so beneficial. If we stop us from scrubbing everything we can find, all intellectual property, all the people around the world, all cultural heritage, all the people that we want, in any way we want to present, then we will not turn a profit. That is not an excuse. It is very unethical. AI systems are literally stealing billions of text, pieces of text from anyone they can find around the world, and their responses to copyright infringement is that they need that to turn a profit. And you and I cannot even imagine using that same logic in any situation. And they mix-max that information to create plausible patterns in response to our queries. That is, in essence, the definition of language, the language models. And the fact that they do a lot of things like summarizing and analyzing and organizing and 1,000 other things and is an extension. Sorry, there's something in the way. Yeah, that is an extension of what they do fundamentally, right? So teachers are skipping teaching, students are skipping learning, and schools and universities may have an incentive in looking the other way because that makes all three parties happy. Teachers don't need to teach a lot, students don't need to learn a lot, if that's what they are interested in. And then the universities don't want to bother about how students are getting a credit and a degree. In a cynical situation, that could work. The premise of education so far is that the learner gets the credit for showing evidence of learning. So the teaching learning contract, often written up in course policies, is violated when the student uses spurious sources of information. In the educational context, the question is not whether the aid, human or machine, is effective, is capable. It is how we are using it, how responsible we are to our own mission. So second, if the content is delivered by AI tools, is basically plausible patterns based on stolen content in certain dominant patterns that in that and the content as designed by the algorithm or the commands of the designers, then the use of this kind of AI undermines the foundational concepts of modern knowledge economy. These systems empower everyday users to hide behind the machine as they participate in a whole new culture where it is no longer a problem to have anyone's cucumber as long as it is, picked up already, as long as it is cut up already. Both the makers of AI, makers and users of AI are all in the same remaking of the fundamental culture of knowledge or knowledge economy globally. And what is happening is that people are competing. You see the number of AI experts among us. We're not asking these difficult questions, but rather riding the tide to see if they can become famous or experts overnight. I think we need to rather grapple with questions that are difficult, where we don't know all the answers, at least learn to ask them. rather than run too fast in this weird competition. Third, when we participate, and I think in doing so, we need to stay on our ground and ask questions, even if the questions are not so sophisticated on the technological side. But we do know the questions about learning. We do know the questions about ethics. We do know the questions about teaching. And third, when we participate in the use of a new knowledge system that is fundamentally ethically flawed, we put our own credibility on the line. What happens when you tell someone something your drunk uncle said, and it's only likely to be true? If you don't check or confirm the veracity with a reliable source, then you're risking your professional reputation. Many people are first publishing AI content and then thinking after they are caught. Especially in the global South, especially in the non-English speaking world. What happens when a student learns something, but that is based on a biased source, which they cannot locate, because AI doesn't allow you to locate most of the times? Their learning is undermined. What happens when members of a profession across the industries and businesses, public and private, including doctors and lawyers, rely on information and solutions delivered by AI tools that are designed to deliver plausible patterns? People can die. Trust is undermined. The social fabric can fall apart. Before the internet, we used to check sources for the relevance of information because nearly all sources we consulted were reliable. The internet added the second filter, second R, of having to check for reliability as well. Now with AI, we must also check for a third R, whether a piece of information we got from it is real, reliable, relevant, and real, right? We can best understand the issues about credibility in AI if we focus on the professional communication context. Imagine that an AI tool provides you what looks like a far better job application letter than you could possibly write. Will you submit it? Maybe with some tweaking, because the letter is better than writing than what you're capable of writing? Or imagine that you're the hiring manager on the other side, and you read a brilliantly written job application letter, which is clearly written by AI, mostly or entirely. Would you extend the job offer to the candidate? Or would you look for another candidate, other things being equal? The candidate may say, no, I'm just merely an computer scientist. I'm not a writer, so I use writing help. But doesn't the computer scientist need to write? How can you trust that person that an idea that they came up with is not an idea that they came up with? Can they solve problems on the go? Can they think on their feet? Can they engage with people when they need to present their product? So do you expect your boss to give you the attention and the time and the energy to read a report that you wrote with an AI tool? So these are difficult questions. They don't have a simple answer. The hiding behind I use assistance is a vast landscape of what assistance means. And therefore, I think it is incumbent upon us as educators to decide where we land of responsible ethical use. Is it okay for us to create an assignment with an AI tool with little effort, but then when we give it to the students also create an AI to submit the assignment? If it is not okay for them, why is it okay for us? Is the excuse that we already know how to do it and they don't? How about we owe our time and attention to them to do our hard work? In fact, using AI effectively takes more time, at least in the beginning, than with not using AI, right? So if we give feedback to students with an AI tool automatically, is it okay for the student to also turn on the AI and go home? And the university will turn on the tuition collecting tool and go home. So why even go to college? All of us could stay home. The system works, right? So there's no broad and bright line between separating human and AI content anymore. But we can and we must learn to identify or create small and specific boundaries based on context, based on audience, based on medium or affordances of the medium, based on purpose of the communication. And at the very least, our teaching responsibility and the students' learning need are both sacrosanct. It doesn't mean that we cannot muddy it with AI, but how far, how much? And therefore, the impact on education is something that we really need to think about. Even if we do not understand the whole thing, the entire thing about AI, we cannot sit here and say, I don't know about the technology. right? But because the technology is already in us, it's like I don't care about politics, but politics care about you. So the second activity for us is a quick survey tool that I created, and I'm going to put it in the chat box for everybody. Based on what I briefly shared in the second segment, and we're still good on time.
Dr. Sharma, would you like to share the screen, or is that okay?
I shared it in the chat box, so everybody can open it. So
Okay.
as educators, how can we use AI tools to support student learning while being honest and treating students ethically, right? Giving our due attention, time, energy, feedback, mentoring. So in creating educational plans and materials and tools and strategies, and giving grade, right, or giving feedback, in assessing and giving feedback, and in fostering critical thinking, facilitating research and writing processes, and in guiding their learning process. What tools have you used, and what are some of the, both the epistemic, rhetorical, and the especially the ethical pitfalls that you see, and how could you address them? So that's what the tool is asking, and we can have a quick conversation.
It's
There's
you need to,
needs permission to
Uh-oh, then what I need to
It-
do, I need to go here and
uncheck the,
yeah,
uncheck it
uncheck
so
the
it's,
button, the default button that has
Mhm.
only Stony Brook people. Okay, here it is, here it is, here it is, Stony Brook. Yes, restrict. I think I left it as anonymous, so it doesn't necessarily collect your. Yeah, I didn't want you to. Oh, is it collecting emails?
Yeah, it is asking you
Okay,
to
got it, got it.
request email.
Okay, refresh everybody, please. I don't know how I drew the line, or maybe someone else was able to draw the line there. Okay, we'll give you 5, or at least 4 quiet minutes. One more minute. All right, everybody, let's quickly look at what we have. Responses. We see a lot of ChatGPT, and we see Gemini, and we see Copilot a bit, and we see Perplexity. Look at the number of people. That's fascinating. 12 out of 30. Socratic. Oh, wow. So this is a group with a wide, latitude of frequency or types of tools used. And then we see a little bit of the, let me push this down a little bit. Using it to grade in effective ways, not critically considering the feedback, student copying and pasting. They mostly take information and sometimes invent the information, doesn't reference where the information is found. So I hope this writing helped you to, or this activity helped you to identify your top concern and how you might be able to address that top concern. If you're interested, I can send you the slide with the notes. I was trying to use the notes so that I can save a little bit of time, but we can go into open conversation after maybe a minute of us sharing anything that you want to share in the chat box before we open the full discussion. While you share some things on the chat, here's what I'm going to do. I will share two things in the chat box. One is a Google Doc that where I put the slide that I was showing you. Here are some of the tools that I have used. If I have used it, I have marked it with how much points I would give out of 10 from 0 on a scale of 0 to 10. It does do that thing, right? Or it helps you to do that thing. If I haven't used it, I put a question mark. I haven't used Jasper enough to be able to say how well it works. But this is some of the tools that I've tried. And here's a quick sample. For example, Notebook LM that I've been using recently does, if you upload a PDF document, it can create an FAQ or Q&A, study guide, table of contents, timeline, briefing doc, as if it is creating something for a lazy politician. And it can do a lot of things. And yesterday I was showing my students that they don't really need to read for class. They can just upload the PDF document up into Notebook LM, and it'll give them the reading response. You just say, okay, here's the instruction my professor gave me. Here's the document. Now create a summary and reading response. And then in class, I also showed my students, please give me a few smart alecky points of discussion, smart alecky points of discussion to impress my professor and my peers for a class discussion on this reading material. And he said, yes, certainly. Here are some smart alecky points of discussion to impress your professor and your friends. And I'm like, that's very good. And I told them, I have been showing my students that they don't need to do anything for me anymore if they've been doing it for me. If they've been doing it for themselves, they need to figure out how to use it, right? So I've been spending a little bit of time to help them to use the tools properly, as well as showing them how to use the tools improperly. But my basic premise is a humorous line that says, all right, here it is. Your neighbor not only mows your lawn, but also go to the gym for you. But that's one thing that I wanted to share. I'm going to share that in the chat box so you can look at it. Chat box, all right? Everyone in the room? Nope, not waiting. Everyone in the meeting. All right. And then the other thing that I want to share quickly is a teaching framework that I have developed over the years. It has become quite useful, and I hope you like it. This is my teaching framework. It shows you step by step by breaking down the process of writing a research paper in a college writing course into 22 steps. And at each step of the way, it shows you how to do it without AI, how to do it with AI, and gives you a prompt. But in the middle column, which started as a joke, really, with my sort of in-class joke, I actually started thinking, no, I should stop joking about this, because these tools can actually do all of these things. If students want to cheat me, I wouldn't be able to tell, right? So I started using a more serious pedagogical approach to guide my students to use them effectively. So I hope that you'll find, both the list of tools that I've been exploring and the teaching framework that I'm providing useful. So that is why I believe that we need to be critical, but also pragmatic, and not, be either romantic or completely, nihilistic or completely cynical about it. There's no option. This is not MOOC. Can I take another 2 minutes? Madhu, do you have it?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good. So the last thing that I was going to say, and also give you another activity, but I don't think we have the time. Let's go to discussion, was let us pay attention to a few things. We're educators. We're not only language educators, we're educators. Even if it doesn't directly impact in the way we teach language and education, we're sensitive, sentient, ethical, political, social, cultural beings. And so let's remember that AI companies exploit people in the global south as well as the global north, but especially in the global south. How? If you simply read this one article that I'm going to send you from the Washington Post, that's about the environment. There's another article that I was going to share with you called the Colonial Matrix of AI. I'll send you in a moment when I find it. It will blow your mind as to how terrible things are behind it. One, data safety workers in countries like Nigeria are suffering after a few months of trying to look at all of the horrifying pictures and videos and texts. They are unable to work, they're broken, and nobody takes care of them. They have enough people to dispose of. People are psychologically damaged. They're extracting a massive amount of energy and beginning to start the nuclear plants and the coal plants because the government cannot, or the communities and the industry cannot supply enough energy. Every time we use an AI tool, according to Washington Post News, we use a bottle of water and 14 LED lights worth of lighting a bulb for an hour. Every time you use a tool for something as simple as sending an email. This is a climate boiling, burning, people destroying, politically democracy undermining, disinformation, exacerbating tool, as well as a powerful educational information professional tool. So knowing one doesn't mean, not knowing the other or not doing the other. We can know and also use it. And the more knowledgeable we are, the more conscious, aware we are, the more we may help the world to move in the right direction. We do have a voice. I am in my university's discussions that will shape the university policy, that will shape I am on social media, where we raise a new kind of voice, even though some people think we're just crazy. We need to use the leverage. We earn political capital to burn it. We do not earn, scholarly prestige in order to sit on the sideline and be pushed around. And these are the harms. Environmental harms are mind-boggling. Political harms are mind-boggling, and educational harms are mind-boggling. And these are global impacts. Our students are global citizens. We are citizens of the world. We co-own the environment, the only habitat we know. We cannot let these things go without our voices being heard on these issues as educators. So let's open up for the conversation. Thank you very much, everybody, for patiently listening and playing along. I think we planned a 75-minute. We have 14.
Yeah, so we got 14 minutes more.
Bob, please go ahead. You wanna share that more with your voice, Rob, if you don't mind?
I was just saying on your earlier list, you had Perusal listed as well. Perusal isn't an AI tool, but a collaborative reading tool. It's profoundly, it can really, it's quite excellent in terms of a lot of things that we wanted to do for a long time. I was going to share a screenshot of my students trying to negotiate
Go ahead.
Foucault's
I
idea
haven't
of
used
games
it,
of
so I
truth.
put a question mark. Yeah.
But it's, yeah, just wanted to
kept
clarify
seeing
that
it
one.
coming across in my friends list and social media and everywhere. What is it?
You upload a document or a video, and it allows you, as students go through it, they can highlight text or add points in the video and add comments, and then they can build on each other's comments and create a ongoing discussion, which it actually detects when things are cut and pasted in, so it's trying to prevent against AI usage in terms of bypassing. But like I said, I was gonna share a screenshot of my students negotiating out Foucault's idea of game of truth in a game article I made them read.
Let's give Rob a minute. Let's look at it. Can you give him access to the?
I don't think you have to do that, but
Yeah, share it. It's worth it. People want to see. But it's not an AI tool. It's always listed as an AI tool.
I don't, as far as I've never seen an AI component to it, other than there may be about, it has an AI evaluation part for the student to for professor side to tell you how highly ranked the comment was, like how engaged with the text was, how much of it was just a straight, like it evaluates, and it's pretty good in terms of doing it. One could set it to auto grade if you wanted to, but most people do not.
So yeah, I put a question mark. Other people should explore it, and the little recommendation from Rob means that I'm going to explore it. Google Doc is also not an AI tool, but I wanted to put it there because it is one of the tools that I use most frequently in my teaching.
Well, with Gemini integrated now, it has become so.
Yeah, okay, but it's not, Gemini is not integrated for people that are not paying, right?
They've added a little to Workspace, whether you want it or not, it's there. The same way the natural language processing was always there, the prediction of your sentences and things like that. It's just enhancing it. But it's not, no, definitely if you pay, you get a different tier.
So. Oh, that's yet another economic issue beyond the politics that we talked about.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
On the environmental dangers.
But that's where Hugging Face kind of fits into the conversation, which wasn't mentioned either. But
Dr. Sharma, I'm going to read out a question that was put in on the chat here. So is it ethical to use ChatGPT for taking assistance in writing our research article?
That's a massively big, complicated question. Yeah. No, it's the short answer. But yes, is if you can, is yes, if you can confirm, cross-check, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, if you're using it to, in my opinion, to brainstorm, to come up with a question that you want to find an answer to, right? To come up with a list of potential lines of inquiry, whatever that you call it, right? To enhance your writing, as in, okay, can you make this paragraph shorter? I have used that, but be always very, very, very careful. If you want to make a paragraph shorter, you don't know unless you give very specific prompts. Even when you give very specific prompts, it tends to have a mind of its own. And that disturbs me because I haven't liked its summaries and condensations very much, nor have my students. And so I don't know why. It seems maybe we don't have enough skills to prompt it properly, or it is possible that it is the way that it works by design. And there's a limitation as to how well it can satisfy our needs. But cross-check is the single answer to a lot of things. use it to enhance, not undermine, is another method, right? But you may also need to check with your supervisor how comfortable they feel. In my case, as a supervisor, I always say, I will allow you, encourage you, and help you to use AI tools, as long as you put a footnote or endnote as to how you used it, right? And if I see patterns of AI-like language, of course, I don't accuse the student right away, but I say, I'm seeing AI-like patterns. You're either not thinking hard enough to think like a human, or you're using an AI tool too much. So your advisor may be uncomfortable. So pay attention to that human dynamic and the full context of your research.
Yeah, there is another question by Rebecca. So if you'd like to read it out yourself, or Rebecca, you wanna speak it?
Yeah, what are some tips
Yeah.
for catching students who are using AI for assignment? Little to no work from them beyond catching word uses. I don't catch students because that's a lost cause for a long time. For me, even in 2008, when I was at the University of Louisville, along with Rob, and I was one of the two faculty training folks in the Center for Learning and Teaching. I was the writing person and working with the computer science professor there. I had developed a framework in which we said, give up. You're never able to really know if a cousin, back then my metaphor was cousin, now it's uncle. You never know if a cousin wrote the paper. So why do you use that approach? Use the assignment design, use teaching certain methods like asking students to write along the way, asking students to meet with you. And if you don't have all the affordances, all the space like a writing teacher along the way, I'm going to share that 10-year-old plagiarism detection or dealing with plagiarism tool and adapt it to the context of AI. I haven't found the time to do it. I'll do it and share it on social media and such. But let me share plagiarism handout. Where is it here? This is old, but if you can update it to the context of AI by comparing AI with the internet, right? Or comparing AI with a cousin, that would be my long answer to the question. My short answer is give up. Catching doesn't work. And AI tools are not effective in detecting AI writing. Am I right, Rob?
I think the answer to that is that you have to know that GPT-0, one of the biggest detectors, also sells tools to avoid detection. So
And there's a comment there by Alexander. She says, so apparently most AI directors are not very reliable.
Exactly. Thank you.
I have a question. So I am on job market. I'm just kind of hesitant to use AI tools, to frame my all these, application materials. But then, in one of the conferences I attended recently on like call assistant or like computer assistant language learning, the keynote speaker was highlighting now the professors are also using AI tools to write
Yeah,
letter of recommendations.
Yeah. No.
The applicant does not use.
I have used AI tool to write letter of recommendation. Here's what I did. Instead of reading the research paper that my student wrote in Writing 102 and summarizing it into one paragraph, where I normally take a piece of writing that students did in order to illustrate how strong their writing is, I asked an AI tool to condense the entire essay into a paragraph, highlight, drawing on this essay to give me a paragraph highlighting the student's writing caliber, and then editing that paragraph and trying to remember what the student did. And working with a shorter text is much faster and easier for me. And I end up doing a better job than me trying to draw on the massive essay when I'm sitting down to write, right? So I do that, but I do feel uncomfortable. Is what I'm saying? It's like 35 years after teaching 35 years, one of my professors down in Louisville said, I've taught for 35 years, but I'm very nervous today when I look at you. Smart people, huh? I think that discomfort should never go away. Otherwise, we will create comfort by going further and further and further until we stop writing the recommendation letter altogether. You see what I'm saying? That discomfort should stay, should linger. But I think it's not either or, it's not black and white. I've used it. Have I used the AI tool to write the recommendation letter beyond that? No. Everything else I write, But that one paragraph that I'm trying to write based on a sample of student writing.
But like if any professor like uses like I will completely depend on that AI tool
No, same thing
but then
applies. Why would we have a double standard? If I
yeah
do not accept an assignment from a student written by AI, I will not make an assignment entirely made by an AI.
but the
I
thing
will
is
not
I
give
mean like
feedback
if
entirely
somebody
with AI.
your advisor or the committee members do that then
Uh-huh.
it depend on that, and does that work against your application, like you didn't
Don't worry about that. It cannot, that's out of your control. But if
yeah
you're using AI to be more creative, use it. If you're using AI to ask new questions that you can answer, or you're using AI to, finesse your writing, if you're using AI to organize better, to condense, but as long as you can own the final product, and as long as you don't feel like these are not your ideas, you don't feel these are not your ideas, or this is not my style, or this is not what I would have done, or what I would have said. Remember, one is time, right? If I'm using it to save time, and the other one's the sort of the content and quality and ethics.
Yeah, we still have 3 more minutes, folks. If you want to, ask, if you have any lingering questions on the use of AI, so feel free to ask to our guest speaker here.
I do have one.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Hi. I come from a K-12 institution, so I'm a high school teacher, and one of the main struggles we've had is coming up with a policy around AI in our schools, and so we're very divided. I think my coworkers and myself, I still have a lot of connections with friends who teach at a higher education institution, and I try to follow how they go about AI so that what I'm teaching my seniors is somehow helping them and aligned with the universities are doing. And then there's coworkers that are going back to writing on paper. So like I guess my question is, how do we, or do you think that there could be a more streamlined, let's say, approach of how K through 12 deals with AI in schools, and then how higher education accepts that, so that if our purpose is to prepare students for college, we're still able to give them some kinds of tools about how to use AI ethically, responsibly, in all the beneficial ways.
You don't have to, they'll do it themselves, unguided or guided. That's the only difference, right? My kiddos, my 2 kids, 9 and 11 grades, they use it all the time, especially if the teacher gives them too much homework. They're likely to get some assistance. If they are not taught well, if they're not, guided well, then they are going to make mistakes. There's no, and you don't have to be dishonest. You just have to be curious, right? You just have to want to learn. You just have to need to overcome your hurdles. And if you find a hurdle and you want to overcome it, and if you can find an assistant to do it, the students are smart enough to know that it's not only bad and dishonest, it's also good and productive. So the professors and the teachers may be denying this reality, the double-edged sword, right? But the students are not denying that really. They're smarter than us. So yes, I absolutely believe that teachers owe it to their students, not only because they're going to go to college and face it, but also because they will face it in their life, they'll face it in their careers. So I think it's important to help the students to navigate the AI landscape. Now, how much time can we afford? It's a matter of priority, comfort.
And it also, in my case, it depends on what kinds of assignments we do, so it's embedded in the instructional process.
Yeah. But almost regardless of the type of assignment, there's almost nothing it doesn't seem to try to help to do. If you say, tell a story about at the time when my grandma died, it's going to do it. And you might think, okay, if I ask a question like, tell a story about a tragic incident in your family or community, you might think, oh, maybe they'll come up with a personal story. How would you know? It does a better job than you and I can. Forget about them. About how to process grief. It'll put it right in the story and present and they're also smart enough to say, make it sound like an 8th grader. Boom, there it is. Or they can feed a few paragraphs and say, make it sound like this style of writing. And then it'll do it. I don't think there is avoiding it.
Okay, we are right in time. I think just we are a little over time, like just 1 minute. So I wanted to make it like I and Dr. Sharma, we wanted to make it like kind of a discussion-based workshop style session for us. Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for engaging us in this informative session for AZTESOL community members and the public. Please join me in thanking Dr. Sharma for delivering such an informative webinar on AI and ethical awareness and the use of AI in language literacy and writing instructions. Thank you once again.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma, for this brilliant event and all those metaphors from silent eye to this drunken uncle
Yeah,
and many reading materials. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful time.
yeah. Grow your own cucumbers, right?
Yeah, grow your cucumber. I love this.
You get your neighbor's help. That's a different thing.
Yeah, I love it.